Hey, what's up everybody? In this video we're going to be looking at how we can clean a propane grill. Critical to do every season so that you don't have that dreaded, feared grease fire. So how do you safely and methodically clean a grill? So here's the example sample grill we'll be using today. This is a decades old Kenmore propane 3-burner grill, and it, as you can see, is pretty nasty, has developed and accumulated lots of junk and build up over the last year and a half or so. I do like to try to clean this up every season. Sometimes I go a little bit longer though, depending, because it is kind of a job. So first thing we're going to do is turn on the heat, and we're just going to let things warm up for about 5 minutes. The idea here is that when we scrub the grates down, things come off a little easier if it's warm. Next up, we'll need our supplies. I've got an all-natural way here. I've got Dawn soap, some rubber gloves, a wire brush, a couple of buckets, some general degreaser, some Windex, paper towels, and a plastic baggie. All right, you can see things have been warming up for about 5 minutes or so, and I'm going to kill the heat. Obviously the grates will be hot, so be really careful, and I'm just going to take my scrubber and just kind of get some of that grime off, scrub it back and forth. I'm not looking for 100% here, just trying to get most of that surface level stuff off. Next up, we'll take our bucket and we'll fill it with Dawn soap and water, get it nice and bubbly, and let that fill pretty much to the top. We're going to be submersing the grates a little later, but for now we're just going to get that wet with Dawn soap and water and just do another little scrub of the top of the grates here. All right, next we'll flip things over and give them a scrub as well. This is not an exact science, and by the way, you can get as deep as you want on cleaning of these grates. There's all kinds of grime and buildup, some that's easy to remove and some that you just probably can never remove unless you just want to spend an ungodly amount of time doing it. Here's the underside of the grate, one of the main grates there. So we're going to scrub that, and I'm actually going to be putting that into another bucket and just soaking it as long as possible. The Dawn soap will help break down some of that grease. Next up, with those grates removed and soaking, we're just going to give it the little inserts here, these V-shaped metal inserts, a light brushing to get some of that build up and whatnot off of there. Now, obviously, these are in pretty poor condition. You can see they're rusting out. I'm not going to change these right now. We are just going to clean them up for the purposes of this video and demo. But obviously, if these things for you are shot, then you're going to want to go ahead and replace these at this point. For now, I'm just going to, like I said, clean them up. So I'm going to soak those a little bit as well. And some of that rusted stuff is so brittle it just kind of breaks off. Another sign that they need to be replaced. All right, we're going to want to shut off the propane tank. You can do this in the previous step before you start cleaning the grates if you'd like. We'll go ahead and make sure that's tight and turned off completely, and remove the propane tank from the grill. And I'm going to place a bucket, taking the little drip pan out of there. We'll be cleaning that. Put that aside for now. But I'll basically take a bucket and put it underneath there, because underneath that hole right there, we're going to be pushing some of this stuff through. You want it to obviously catch into the bucket and not spill all over the back. So for now, we'll let that soak. All right, I feel like it's time to scrub my grates off here, so I'm going to get those out, and I'm going to take my scrubber, my cleaner here, and I'm just going to work it back and forth. I'm also going to flip it over so that I can run my blade against the grates to get rid of that really stubborn carbon buildup there. I can tilt my blade just to find that right angle and just run it all the way down each grate. And that stuff comes off pretty easily with a good blade. Now, this next part, I'm going to just give my burners a little penetrant here, just to show you how you possibly might need to do this depending on your setup. But I'm actually not going to be removing my burners. They're in pretty good shape. By the way, you might need to access the back of the grill to get those burners off. Please refer to your grill's specific instruction manual on how you can do that. Again, mine are in pretty good shape, so I'm not too worried about that, but I am going to give them a nice little brushing, get some of that light stuff off of there. And you'll want to be careful you don't damage the parts here of the burner and the ignition system. Obviously, that's pretty important. All right, so next I'm just going to take a handful by handful, and I'm going to empty this stuff. I'm just going to pick it up, all this nasty grease residue from leftover food, right? That's what happens to all that dripping stuff when you cook burgers and whatnot. It just builds up slowly over time. And of course, I'm going to lift all this stuff out. I can also push some of this stuff through that hole, depending on the size of the buildup that I'm removing. A lot of it just falls right through, but this piece, for example, is too big to fall through that hole, so we're gonna we'll just manually remove it, obviously. So we're gonna get as much of that stuff out as we can, and of course, time to scrub things down a little bit. This is kind of what I have visually, what's going on at this point. I've got grates soaking again. I've got things scrubbed down and all that nasty stuff removed for the most part. So what I'm doing here, I just boiled a pot of water for tea, and I filled it all the way up, and I'm just going to take that boiling water and I'm going to pour it into the grill. And this, of course, the idea is that it loosens up all of that stuff as much as possible and helps it drain into the bucket underneath. You can see why that bucket is pretty important. Obviously, don't exceed the amount of water that you pour in here. You don't want it to exceed the bucket's maximum fill line. I put a couple gallons through, and it's no problem for the bucket. It doesn't even come close to filling it up. But of course, look at all that nasty wet stuff coming out. All right, you can also, of course, using some mild stainless steel, you can manually remove that and do several rounds, alternating between scrubbing with your scrubber, the stainless steel, and the boiling water, and just trying to get most of that stuff up and rinsed off. It's amazing what that boiling water will do as opposed to just a garden hose. Look at all that steam. Again, you can get as deep as you want to on this. I'm not looking for perfection here. I don't need things to be 100%. I just need things to be pretty clean so that I avoid a grease fire. Of course, at this point, you would have the option of power washing if you have a power washer. Again, being really careful that you do not damage any of the parts. Power washing is incredibly powerful. That's why they call it a power washer, obviously. Or you could use a garden hose to help you rinse things through. Again, being careful that you don't put too much water in there where it overflows your bucket. All right, so that's the idea. Let's take a look at these V-shaped metal inserts that go over the burner again. You can see, again, they're in pretty bad condition. I recommend replacing these if you have not done so. Look at that. That fire just chews up, and that water and rust just chews those things up over time. But I've already given them a scrub, a gentle scrub with my scrubber, my brush scrubber. Now I'm going to take some stainless steel and manually get some of that stuff off of there, and just being really gentle with it. Again, for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to replace those V-shaped metal inserts. I'll put them back here for you. You would also have the option of spray painting them with a rust inhibitor to prevent further rust or to help slow further rust. Obviously, you want to be careful spray painting anything, but it could look like this. And in fact, that's what I'm doing with mine. You want to be careful because you don't want anything to ignite unnecessarily, right? So read the label on your can of paint if you're going to do that. Make sure it's heat grill safe. And my next step here, with my grates clean and my V-shaped inserts clean, I am going to put those back into place. And now we can move on to the exterior, a little bit of the interior there if you wanted to scrape the upper inside part of your grill, depending on what kind of condition it's in. So you can see I'm using Windex here. I recommend using a general spray degreaser first, just something that's kind of light and mild. You want to read the instruction manual for your specific grill to see what you can and cannot use. For example, you probably don't want to use a bleach-based product. You might damage your grill. But this general degreaser, general cleaner might, the idea of course is for it to remove and lift up some of that nasty stuff. And the Windex, the glass cleaner, of course, is something that you would do as a final touch, if that makes sense. Get it nice and shiny. All right, so where my bucket was, you can see it kind of made a sloppy mess. The bucket got most of it, but there was some residue splashing up and whatnot. And of course, I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to take some paper towels and get most of that nasty stuff off. You can just, with a few paper towels, lift most of it. It just kind of scoops right up. And a plastic bag comes in really handy here, putting that stuff directly into the plastic bags to avoid further contamination and chaos, right, with your grease. And with a general degreaser, I'm just going to spray this and let it sit for several minutes. And of course, I will work my way around while that's soaking, getting all side surfaces and front surfaces, top surfaces, not so much the bottom surfaces, and then my paper towel can lift that stuff up. And it does a pretty good job, you can see here. For stubborn spots, get out the mild stainless steel, give it a scrubbing. Careful not to let it dry. You might have to scrub again. And I'm putting the garden hose on the lightest setting and just spraying that stuff off. This is the final result. A sparkling clean grill. This thing is 10 years old. Let me hook everything back up and make sure it is working. I'm also going to burn off some of that cleaner that might be left in there for a good 10 minutes. Make sure everything is snug. And we'll see how that lights. Everything is, I think, good. Yep, there we go. All right, so we've got a clean grill now. Everything seems to be in great working condition. And I am no longer fearful of that terrible grease fire, right? That's the risk that you run if you do not clean your propane grill. It is not a risk worth taking. It's definitely worth 2 hours or so of your time to do this once every season. Of course, when I'm done, I'm gonna clean off my grilling area, move the grill out and spray everything down. And that's it. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you in cleaning up your grill, explaining the process and how it works, and maybe some tips along the way. Thank you so much. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If you're interested in more do-it-yourself jobs and home product reviews, be sure to subscribe.